Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Makers Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me I have an amazing lady, Miss Cathy Domoney. I almost messed it up. I hope I said it.
That's right.
Cathy, welcome. Thank you for being here, and audience members, thank you for tuning in. I love how you show up. I've seen you in community, and I love your energy. Can you tell our audience members a little bit more about what you do and how you got involved doing what you do? And then we're going to discuss more about why this is something that we decided to bring to the radar and talk about it.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. And I, from a very young age, realized I was born into a family that I didn't really fit into. So I was the youngest by 10 years. And I just, from a very young age, instinctively knew we were supposed to be behaving differently towards each other. And so I learned to be quiet. I learned to observe. And from that point, I became very interested in human behavior because I was trying to find a new path for me. So I was always seeking out more information. I was reading philosophy from a very young age, thinking, I'm sure there's a different way that we're supposed to be in the world, and I need to find what that is. And then that sort of led me down a path to be fascinated with human behavior. So I did my degree in sociology. I then went into teaching, but I was super excited about who the children were, not so much about the curriculum. So I could just sit all day, every day, just talking to the children, amplifying their genius, connecting them to themselves, connecting them to each other, because I used to inherit the classes of children who were notoriously challenging in behavior, because I had a very natural rapport with those children. And all I did was love them, really. That's all I did, was love them and show them all of the amazing things about themselves. And then once they really beautifully connected with themselves, they then connected with each other, and then the academic progress came. But it really started at the core. And then I started to have my own children, use that opportunity for my evergreen learning plan. I'm always studying something. So started studying psychology and counseling and hypnotherapy and coaching and all of those sorts of things, which helped me tremendously professionally. But what I didn't realize, it was actually preparing me to become a mother to 5 neurodivergent children. So that's been an incredible blessing for me, because I realized where I was in my personal evolution wasn't good enough, and I wasn't going to be the best possible parent to these children that they deserved. So a lot more inner work, a lot more work on myself, a lot more studying to really become the parents that my children deserved. And that's been a really incredible gift for me. And then in a nutshell, I had my 5th baby, and I actually died on the table having her. And then it was sort of that catalyst of, hey, I'm not going to be around forever. I've got this amazing mission to serve families all over the globe. I need to start. And then, of course, once you're in alignment, the universe rushes in. And my first client literally bashed my door down, sat on my sofa, cried and said, you need to help my son. And that's really how my business started. So, it was an amazing journey.
I oftentimes say that the best personal development course is becoming a parent, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Biggest learning curve you'll ever have.
Right, exactly. So thank you for sharing that. That was an amazing story. I would love to hear, or have our audience members hear a little bit more about the specifics of your current business and what you do, and then we'll dive in deeper from there.
Sure. So I had a private practice where I was working with families privately all over the world. And it was sort of wonderful because every first conversation was the parents saying, hey, can you sort my kids out? And the kids saying, hey, can you sort my parents out? And so that was like a beautiful first start. And then as we work together, my work is very deep. I'm qualified in a lot of different things. My personal journey has elevated my professional journey. And I'm a very intuitive person. And so by the end of the journey, we show up and have a conversation and the kids are going, well, I didn't show up as powerfully as I could because I didn't communicate with my parents effectively. And the parents are saying, hey, well, we could have handled that better because we were in this space. And so really, it's, again, going back to that basics of connecting everybody to their inner genius, connecting them to their self-love, because once we fill ourselves up, we can connect to other people. So I'm just taking that model and taking it from one to one to one to many, because I'm really looking for legacy and impact. So I've just rolled out a program, which is a really safe place for parents to land, because as you know, the last few years on parents has been such a strain, and they've been superheroes showing up every day in extraordinary circumstances, trying to keep their families safe, their communities safe, and their children, you know, well mentally, well socially, well emotionally, well physically. And I found, certainly in Australia, there's this period now where everything's calming down a little bit and everything's hitting everybody now that things are calming down. And so I've created this beautiful nurturing space for parents to come and land so that they can reset, be nurtured, be supported, loved, no guilt, shame, blame, there's no judgment. Because there's always areas that we need to attend to. And, you know, my journey hasn't been linear and it hasn't been easy. And so I always feel if you want to go to Greece, you don't want to talk to someone who's read the guidebook, you want to talk to someone who's been to Greece. And so I'm able to speak to so many things and support people in that way. And I think parents are really needing that time and space now to actually invest in themselves, because they've spent the last few years just serving everybody else, and it's time to land and be nurtured.
Absolutely. Cathy, I know with your background in sociology, it gives you this deeper way of seeing how things on a personal level can ultimately lead to societal changes and impacts that a person can have on society if they are true to themselves versus if they're unhappy or issues that they have in their communications. Which is actually one of the challenges that I had when I was doing my preparations for my TEDx talk. Here I was trying to talk about how the brain is structured, and then I was linking it to things that we have generationally, problems that we have in society. And, you know, I had to cover this vast distance between the two in a short period of time. But the beauty of your programs is you're literally addressing it without timelines, and it's on the person's terms and with their timelines. So what are some of the big challenges that you see people typically come to you and complain about?
Overwhelm, number one, just complete overwhelm, because parents these days have to be everything to everybody. You know, there's so many high expectations on parents now. We really need to strip that back to something manageable and something worthwhile. You know, I always like to get bang for my buck. And with my parenting, because I've got 5 neurodivergent children, my husband works away 3 out of 4 weeks. So I want to make sure that every minute that I have with them counts. And I've developed systems to make sure that every minute that I have is impactful and meaningful and elevates them and me to the next level. So number one, we deal with the overwhelm. Number two, there's a feeling of disconnect, particularly from themselves, because they've sacrificed so much for so many people. They're coming through now and saying, well, who am I now? Because we are all forever changed, right. You know, and we need a space, a sacred container where we can just say, okay, what's working for me? What's not working for me? What do I need to amplify? What do I need to release? And having the time and space to do that finally is such a gift. And then the third thing I have with folks is a real fear that they're doing something unconsciously to impact their kids in a negative way. And, you know, I have so much respect and I honor so much the families that are able to reach out and actually talk about these things, because traditionally, we've kept it quiet, we've kept it secret, because we don't want to be judged as bad parents, because we desperately want to be the best parents we can possibly be for our children. And we don't want to show any chinks in our armor, because then we feel like a failure. Whereas the parents that come to me are going, hey, here, I'm going to expose my underbelly here. Please come in, you know, help me, support me, because I really want, my dedication to my children is so crystallized, I want to know that if there's any areas, any blind spots, any places where I need nourishing, support, encouragement. And then, of course, by the parents doing this, they unconsciously give their kids permission to do the same, and the whole energy in the home shifts. And it's actually a beautiful privilege to watch.
That is a beautiful point, and I oftentimes make it during these sessions that it is very important for us to role model the behavior that we want to see, and being able to ask for help, ask for support, knowing that you don't have the answer, letting other people know that, hey, I don't know everything, is really important. And it gives perspective to the kids that not everything has answers to, and not everything is figured out for you. And you have to do a lot of the problem solving along the way.
Absolutely. But what you're doing is preparing them for life.
Right, exactly.
Because when they come out from under our wings, they're going to have to deal with challenge. They're going to have to deal with difficult behavior. They're going to have to experience some level of pain. That's just what life is like. So if we can create this gorgeous container in our homes where we're holding ourselves to those standards first, and then we hold our children to those standards, and we create a safe environment where they can positively and affirmingly work through these challenges and develop those skills they'll need when they leave us. That's a real gift. And what I'm finding, I'm just going to tell you something really amazing. What I'm finding beautiful about this is the awareness that parents have now. I've even got expectant parents coming to work with me because they say, well, I baby-proof the house and I buy the toys and I buy the furniture. But what I need to do as well is make sure that I'm showing up without baggage from my childhood filtering through my parenting. And I think that is tremendously incredible that people have had that self-awareness now, and they're wanting to show up immediately before their kids are even born in the most powerful position they can be to guide their kids to be the best, most potential that they can be.
Absolutely. I think part of that is because, when I was growing up, and probably even in my parents' generation, there was a family, a community that would help the process of child development. And more we have become our own individual family units, and you either have to look for professional help, which many cases came too late, and or people didn't know where to turn to, so they had to fend for themselves. And so because of that, now our generation is starting to look at it, it's like, okay, I need to take this seriously. I need to figure this thing out before I'm in deep water. Now, what are some of the things that you have noticed as far as children? Because generations are changing faster and faster, right? That generational gap is also changing. So what are some of the things that you hear from them other than fix my parents?
Well, I think something that we need to acknowledge as the adults in their experience is they're growing up in a world that we didn't grow up in. So they're navigating so many more points of contact that we never had to navigate through. And also, it's a weird situation because in a lot of ways, we're the most connected we've ever been in history.
Correct.
And in another way, there's a lot of kids out there that feel really disconnected because they have connections virtually, which can be lovely. I mean, during COVID, it was wonderful that my children could stay connected with their peers virtually, which was a gift, as long as that doesn't become the only way that we communicate. And also something that is a real pandemic, in my opinion, is the social media trend of how we present ourselves on social media if everything's being perfect. So what our kids are doing is actually comparing themselves to a false idol, and then feeling lack within themselves. And we think we really need to strip that back and bring it back to basics and say, we need to be comparing ourselves from how we were last year, not comparing ourselves to an image on social media that really isn't accurate.
That's beautifully said. All right. So given that our time is limited, I want to make sure that we give our parents that are, as you said, super busy and wearing so many hats, one or two things that they can implement from watching this video, and then move forward and shape the family life in a positive way as a result.
Well, my first point would be to be kind to yourself. I think as parents, and our generation particularly, we look at all the areas we need to improve. We don't celebrate what we're getting right. And we're getting so much right. We are the perfect parents for our children. They're given to us for a reason. We need to trust ourselves, and we need to really connect with our intuition. So a lot to do with my coaching is to unpack the way that parents have been sterilized away from their intuition, because they're so wanting to do the right thing. They're so dedicated to their children that they read this book and this book and this book and this book and this book, which is amazing. There's so much wonderful information out there, supportive information, nourishing information, as long as you pick and choose what works for you. And you really need to trust yourself and your intuition. My intuition has saved my husband's life, and it saved one of my children's lives, because I just knew something was wrong, and I trusted myself. And I argued with so many professionals and said, hey, I don't care what you say, there is something seriously wrong here. And I trusted myself so deeply that I saved my husband's life, and I saved one of my son's lives, because I would not go away, because I trusted myself so deeply. And I really feel that parents need to get back to that deep level of trust of self, because, their intuition is their guidance system, and their children are theirs for a reason.
I also believe that what you just said enables you, by trusting your intuition, acting on it despite all the outside contradictions. When the results show up, when you come up with a solution, or what ends up happening is you can tie that much more closely to yourself and your level of who you are, what you bring to the world, and as a result, be able to celebrate it. Speaking of celebrations, one of the things that I have noticed for the first time this year is many of the organizations, communities, families that I'm involved with, at the beginning of this year, they took the month of January to celebrate what transpired during the past year. So within families sitting down and kind of reviewing the previous year and celebrating their achievements, accomplishments, things that they were able to connect with. And so what a great way to start a year, right? To be able to start it in celebration. But that celebration really, it becomes meaningful when you have stayed true to yourself, and those solutions that have given those results have come from you, so you feel connected to those celebrations. So
absolutely. And I feel as well, what we're celebrating is really important, because I remember with my own children and children I've worked with, the things we celebrated were, you showed up every day, even when it was really hard. And that is worth celebrating, because that shows resilience and strength. So I think it's really important we don't just celebrate achievements on paper. We celebrate evolution of self, and how we've developed with strength in those core pieces that are so important for our kids to build the foundations upon which they build their adult lives.
Absolutely. One of the things that you see today is you're very results oriented, quick, fast, short, right? And it's like touch of a button and the result is there. And we don't focus enough on the process, the evolution, as you said. And when we don't do that, that's basically where we spend most of our time. So if you that affects your resolve, that affects your resilience. So when you are not focusing on that, then your resilience, and that's one of the issues that we see today, both in kids and in relationships, that the resilience is not there, that it's much more fragile, and stress happens. You can't avoid it, but you need to have that resilience to celebrate the process, the evolution, to be able to witness that, like you said. So, all right, so cool. Any other tips?
I do feel that it's really important as parents we model practicing the pause, because what I see out there is a lot of reactionary communication, which is not actually beneficial to anybody. And so I feel that we really need to model how to work through conflict and dealing with difficult people by practicing the pause and doing our inner work, so that we could get ourselves back to a place of love and kindness and honor and honesty and all of those beautiful things that we want to rippling through our kids' lives, and respond from those places. Because the problem with technology is it's very instant. Right. And, I really feel like we need to teach practicing the pause, working through the emotions, so we don't react from that heightened state. because I do feel a lot of conflict, a lot of mental unwellness has come from this instant communication where people are actually responding from fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
And they need time to calm their nervous system and respond from a calm, centered, kind place. I really feel like if we want world peace, we need to practice the pause, and we need to communicate from that kind, thoughtful, intelligent place and not reactionary.
Right. I love that, especially when it comes to pause, it goes back to reaction versus being proactive. And for parents to display that we are not reactive to circumstances gives a sense of security to kids, that we are not at the whim of chance and what happens to us that takes us on an unforeseen path. And in fact, even if something unforeseen happens, we always come back and center ourselves with that pause, and then act in accordance to where we now are, or we find ourselves in life, and what would be the best approach, best thing to say, best action to whatever just has happened, basically. So really, really important. Now, when you say pause, how long is this pause? Because
it depends on the incident. I mean, I had a personal experience a couple of weeks ago where I'd reached out with with a view, with loving help to somebody, and they came back and they were furious with me. And that was a trigger for me. Like, I'm still working through my stuff. I'm a work in progress. I'm constantly doing work on my stuff. I'm constantly doing the inner work. When things like that happen, I'm like, that's really interesting. I need to work through that. And so I sat with the feelings, and I had a huge range of human emotions. First, I was horrified, then I was angry, then I was all of the things, but I didn't respond until I got back to that place of love. I understood that the person was actually responding from a place of wound and pain. And when I got myself regulated, I responded from that place. And then actually the response was gorgeous. And we've actually become closer in that experience. But because I was able to practice the pause. And, you know, one of the best things my kids ever witnessed was we went to the post office. It was super hot. It was super busy. We were queuing for ages. Nobody wanted to be there. I had to send a document over fax, which is very old school, but that's what I had to do on that day. And anyway, the lady that served me was really rude and aggressive. And I didn't change my persona. I was polite and kind and all of the things. Went home. She hadn't sent one of the pages of the document. I had to take all the children back in the heat, and we were in Australia, and I had to queue up again. And you could see the lady saw me and went, oh, God, here she comes again. Do you know what I mean? She did not want to deal with me. And I went to do it again. And again, I was kind. And I said, I'm sorry to trouble you, but one of the pages didn't go through on this contract. I really need it all to go through. And she apologized. She went and did it. And then she came back and she went, I'm so sorry. My dad died yesterday and I just can't think straight. Wow. And I said, I'm so sorry for that. And we actually went and bought her a bunch of flowers and left it on there for her just to show that somebody cared. But what my children witnessed is somebody being really volatile, really unkind, really rude and aggressive. But then they realized it was coming from a place of pain and hurt, you know, and that was a really interesting thing for them. And they're the wisest, most beautiful, connected, calm, friendly children you could ever meet. I mean, one of my children, when he was about 6, I found him crying, and very unusual. And I asked him what was wrong. And he said he was being bullied at school. And he said, you know, it's like the movies, Mum. This kid's doing things to me like the movies. And I said, have you told your teacher? And he said, no. I said, why? And he said, because I know he's got a good heart, because he's kind to other people, just not me. Wow. So what it develops is that amazing sense of empathy and understanding that it's something about their journey. It's not a deficiency of me.
Right.
And that's really important for our kids to separate from, that it's not a deficiency of me why I'm receiving this behavior. It's an expression of somebody else's pain.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Cathy, this conversation can go on a lot longer, but of course our time is short. So how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
So my website is cathydomoney.com. So it's Cathy, C-A-T-H-Y, and Domoney is D-O money. That's the spelling. That's the easiest way to say it. And then on social media, Cathy Domoney. So yeah, that's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome. Well, audience members, as we discussed it earlier, it is important to role model the behavior and let our children know that it's okay to connect to other people, especially people who have our best interest at heart, want to support us. and it's okay for us not to have all the answers. So the main thing is to be able to connect. So please connect with Cathy. Make sure that you check the information that she has on her site, and find support and role model the behavior. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe and get notified of all the experts like Cathy that show up here, share their expertise, share their gifts and knowledge with you, and you get notification of that. Cathy, thank you again for being here and spending time with us. I know you're busy. Any final words of wisdom for our audience members before we finish today?
Just go gently. Go gently with yourself and with everybody else, and we'll create a much better world together. And what I've created online is a village. Actually, it's a village where we can plug in and get that support that we deserve and we were always meant to have.
Absolutely, beautifully said. Thank you. Until next time, guys. Cheers.